Welcome to one of the most audacious games in chess history, the King Walk. Played in Tilburg in 1991, Nigel Short faced the legendary Dutch grandmaster, Jan Timman, at the Interpolis tournament. What makes this game immortal is not just the brilliance of the attack, but the sheer audacity of Short's final idea, marching his king from Gone all the way to d5, straight toward the enemy pieces in the middle game. The crowd at Tilburg could not believe what they were seeing. Let's witness this legendary game, move by move. Nigel Short opens with king's pawn to e4, the most popular first move in chess, immediately claiming central space. Jan Timman responds with knight to f6, the Alekhine defense, provocatively attacking the e4 pawn and inviting white to overextend. Short pushes a5, accepting the challenge. The pawn advances to chase the knight and gain space in the center. The knight retreats to d5, a natural square in the Alekhine. Black plans to undermine white's pawn chain later. d4 reinforces the f5 pawn and builds a strong classical pawn center. Short is playing solidly and ambitiously. Timman strikes at the center with d6, challenging the f5 pawn. This is the modern variation of the Alekhine defense. Knight to f3, developing naturally and supporting the d4 and e5 pawns. Short keeps his position flexible. g6 prepares to fianchetto the dark squared bishop to g7 Tatveda. Black wants to put pressure on the d4-f5 pawn chain from the flank. Bishop to c4, targeting the d5 knight and the ef7 square. An aggressive developing move that eyes the king's side. The knight drops back to b6, attacking the c4 bishop. Timman wants to force the bishop to commit before completing his fianchetto. The bishop retreats to b3, maintaining its diagonal aim at 7 toru. The b3 square keeps the bishop active and safe. Timman completes the fianchetto with bishop to g7. The dark squared bishop now controls the long diagonal, pressuring d4. Queen to e2, connecting the rooks and supporting a future advance. The queen also eyes the e4 square and the king's side. Knight to c6, developing the last minor piece and adding pressure to the d4 pawn. A natural and logical move. Short castles king's side, bringing the king to safety and connecting the rooks. A standard but important move in the opening. Timman castles as well. Both kings are now safely tucked away, or so it seems. The real battle is about to begin. A useful prophylactic move preventing any future bishop or knight intrusions on g4 tardy. Short prepares for the middle game. a5, gaining space on the queen side. Timman prepares potential queenside play and secures the b4 square for later use. Short responds with f4, stopping black's queenside expansion. The pawn on a4 also prevents b5 ideas for Timman. Timman captures on e5, finally releasing the central tension. The position opens up, which will favor the better developed side. Short recaptures with the d-pawn, maintaining a strong central pawn on e5. The d-file is now open for white's rooks. Knight to d4, an ambitious jump into the center. But this knight will be driven back, and black loses time in a critical phase. Short captures the knight cleanly. By exchanging, he simplifies the position while keeping his central pawn advantage. The queen recaptures on d4 toy. Black has an active queen but lacks piece coordination, a dangerous imbalance. Rook to a1, reinforcing the f5 pawn and preparing to use the open e5. The rook is now perfectly placed. a6, bolstering the center and blocking the b3 bishop's diagonal. A solid but somewhat passive defensive move. Knight to d2, rerouting toward a better square. Short plans an f3 to attack the queen and strengthen his center. The knight returns to d5. While centralized, it lacks real targets. Timman is already starting to drift in the position. Knight to f3, attacking the queen on d4 with tempo. Knight is beautifully centralized and controls key squares. The queen retreats to c5, driven away from the center. Black's pieces are becoming passive while white improves. Queen to e4, a powerful centralization, threatening the a7 area and the d5 knight. White's pieces are harmoniously placed. Queen to b4, trying counterplay on the queen's side, but the queen is far from the king's side where the real battle will unfold. Bishop to c4, renewing the attack on d5. If the knight moves, the e6 pawn becomes a target. Short is building pressure, move by move. Knight retreats to b6, the only safe square, but now Short wins the bishop pair after the forced exchange. B. Supporting the c4 bishop and preparing b3. Short methodically improves every piece before launching his attack. Timman exchanges the knight for the bishop. He relieves some pressure but gives white the bishop pair in an open position. Pawn recaptures on c4. White now has the bishop pair and a strong pawn structure. The c4 pawn controls the d5 square. Rook to 8, contesting the e-file. A sensible defensive move, but White's initiative is growing steadily. Rook to done, seizing the open d-file. Short now has rooks on done and a1. Tremendous pressure on the center. The queen returns to c5, retreating from b4. Timman's queen has been shuffled back and forth without achieving anything. Queen to h4. Short shifts the attack to the king's side. The queen i7 and supports future piece maneuvers toward the black king. b6, developing the bishop to b7. Timman tries to activate his remaining pieces, but Short is already ahead in the race. Bishop to e3, centralizing the last minor piece. The bishop targets the c5 queen and supports a potential bhi6 exchange. The queen slides to chicks, defending along the 6th rank, but Black's position is becoming increasingly passive. Bishop to h6, a key strategic move. Short forces the exchange of the dark squared bishops, permanently weakening Black's kingside. The bishop retreats to height, refusing the trade, but the bishop is now completely buried in the corner, virtually out of the game. Rook invades on date. Short's rook penetrates to the 8th rank, creating enormous pressure on Black's back rank. Bishop to b7, finally developing the last piece. But it's too little too late. Short's pieces are overwhelming. The second rook joins on done, doubling rooks on the d-file. White has total control of the only open file, a textbook invasion. The bishop comes out to g7, but now it walks into the exchange Short wanted all along. The h6 bishop will devour it. Rook penetrates to d7. The rook on the 7th rank is devastating. It attacks f7, cuts off the king, and dominates completely. Rook to fight, trying to hold f7. Timman defends grimly, but his position is crumbling under the relentless pressure. Bishop captures on g7. Short eliminates the dark squared bishop, leaving Black's king permanently weakened on the dark squares. The king recaptures. Black's kingside is now stripped bare. No fianchetto bishop, no pawn shelter. The king is exposed. Rook lifts to d4, a flexible and powerful move. The rook swings across the 4th rank, ready to jump to fowler or g4. Both rooks are now on the e-file. Timman tries to generate counterplay against the f5 pawn, but Short is far ahead. Queen to f6 check. a dominating move. The queen controls the dark squares around the black king and threatens devastating attacks. The king retreats to gate, the only move. But now the king is stuck in the corner while Short's pieces encircle it. h4, gaining space on the king's side and supporting a possible h5 break. Short prepares the ground for something spectacular. f5, trying to prevent h5 by white. But this creates a fixed target on ha5 and weakens the g5 square. Fatally, as it turns out. King to h2. The king walk begins. Instead of sitting safely on Gone, Short starts marching his king forward. The crowd at Tilburg cannot believe their eyes. Rook to Sate, repositioning. Timman senses danger but cannot find an active plan. Short's grip is total. King to g3. The king advances another step toward the enemy position. In the middlegame. This is unheard of. Kings are supposed to hide, not march forward. The rook returns to 8, completely helpless. Timman has no constructive moves, while Short's king boldly advances. King to Fowler. The king marches into the center of the board. 3 steps forward and the chess world is in shock. Short is using his king as an attacking piece. Bishop to Sate, a forlorn retreat. Timman moves the bishop back to its starting square, a sign of complete strategic bankruptcy. King to g5, the legendary move. Short's king stands on g5, 4 squares from where it started, deep in enemy territory in the middle game. Timman resigns, because c6 is coming next, and after that, queen to g7 is an unstoppable checkmate. The king walk, one of the most audacious and beautiful sequences in the entire history of chess. And that is the king walk, one of the most extraordinary moments in the entire history of chess. Nigel Short built a position of such total dominance that he could afford to march his king 4 squares forward. From Gone to h2, then g3, then Fowler, and finally to Give, deep into the heart of the battle. Timman resigned because king h6 followed by queen g7 checkmate is completely unstoppable. This game is a testament to creative genius and courage at the chessboard. Want to play and improve your own chess? Visit chess99.com. Free, fast, and fun chess for everyone.